What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Hardwood Rod podcast. I'm your host, Hardwood Rod. As we continue season 3, today I am joined by filmmaker and musician Rob Holub. As he takes us on his own personal journey of self-discovery, we go behind the scenes of his latest documentary, Searching for Contact. That and much more. Stay locked in.
Hope you're ready for the comeback.
All right, we are back here with another podcast. With this next guest, he's actually a jack of all trades, and he's been all around the world. And I'm excited to see what he's working on right now. And Rob,
hey,
what have you been up to lately? Because I'm looking at everything you're doing, and man, how are you managing all that stuff?
Yes, well, hello, and thanks so much for having me on your podcast. You're doing some great stuff there, interesting guests, and I feel very honored to be part of your podcast here today. And
thank you.
To answer your question, Rodrigo, it's a struggle at times where I'm asking myself, who am I? What am I doing? What should I be focusing on? Is it music? Is it making films? Is it speaking? But eventually, and these are just, tags and labels we're putting on ourselves because we define work in a certain way. But eventually, for me, it all comes together from one core essence, which is communication. Communication as a tool that we have to express emotions. That's really where it's all coming from.
No, that's perfectly, and with everything that I've been kind of, with, or not just me, but everybody that's been going the last couple of years here, I want to touch on not just the current state that, everything has been affected that you've been working on, but, where are you, and as far as mentally and emotionally, because everybody is reacting differently these last couple of years, but we'll dive into all of that. But first of all, just let's kind of introduce yourself, Rob. What have you been kind of these last 20 years in media and as a speaker and a musician? Kind of tell us a little bit how you kind of got started and the pathway for your creative journey.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I think I need to go back way back. Not necessarily when I was born, but I grew up in a quite musical family. So I grew up in Switzerland, but my parents are originally from the Czech Republic, and music was always a thing. So I started playing the piano at an early age. I was 6 years young. Started to take some piano classes, classical music, then a little bit of jazz. And music was, I would say, like this first creative source or creative thing that was there in my life that I strongly felt a connection to. I would listen to Abbey Road's, the Beatles. That was to the ballads. And I just felt like, wow, music really does something to me. So I tried to, or I had no choice but to do it myself. And then, as a bit later on, then obviously I went to school, and my parents wanted me to get a proper degree and go to university, which I then end up doing. But I wanted to become an actor. First, I wanted to be like Michael Jackson. I loved just performing artists, musicians on stage. I always looked up to these people being on stage in front of the crowd and just dancing away, singing away. And I wanted to do that, but then acting was also a thing. I also felt this strong connection with movies, where music, always plays a major role.
Right.
But then, I had no choice but to go to. My parents gave me choices, but in a way, I felt to go to private acting school was too expensive. My parents wouldn't pay for that. I didn't have the money. So university in Switzerland, you don't pay a lot. It's different from the States. So that was a good entry point into the media world, because I studied communication and journalism. And that was let's say professionally, a nice setup. I then went to San Diego State University for 1 year, did an exchange year, studied a little bit of film. And music was always there, but I never felt the urge to pursue it as a career. So I would be a DJ. I would even try to rap. I was always in many different genres. I played the guitar, but nothing
Nice.
really, I'm a lazy guy as well. In a way, I'm a minimalist in certain things. So I never And Switzerland, I mean, I don't know what you know about Switzerland. We have great cheese and chocolate and mountains, and we used to have a lot of money in the bank accounts. That has changed, but we're not known, right? We're not known for creating amazing art, and all these, artist legends are born here. I'm not saying we don't have creative people, and I think it has changed over the last 15 years. But so I never felt this urge, like coming from a different place where you maybe struggle. Not to
Right.
say that I'm not coming from a rich family, but I always had food, and it was never like an issue to survive. So to cut the long story short, is after my studies, this was like a moment where my parents released me, right? My mother was like, son, tapping on my shoulder, son, I'm proud of you. You got your
Y-
degree, you got your
Yeah.
master's, and now get out of
Go
here
figure it out.
and do whatever you
Go
want.
figure it out.
Um, and then music was the thing, man. I was 25, 26 with all the exchange in San Diego, so my studies took a bit longer, but eventually I started working as well on the side to make money. But then I understood my heart is beating for the music. So what am I going to do in the Swiss Alps? Am I going to eat some more chocolate and cheese, or am I going to move to New York City? So I
Boom.
moved to New
So
York City in 2007.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Would you say that what kind of launched you was music, but you said at 25 you kind of got like motivated again, right?
Yeah, it was again. I think it was the moment where I finished my university and I understood now I'm taking full responsibility for my life, and why not listen to my heart? Like I wanted to actually go to Australia, to Sydney and surf and check out beautiful chicks on the beach, but that pay the rent. And I'm joking a little
Yeah.
bit, but I was always felt drawn to this kind of lifestyle, just like in flip flops, Californian lifestyle, I would say.
Yeah.
But then I
Yeah.
just understood that my heart is singing when it hears music and creating music. So even though from a like career point of view, it's probably one of the hardest thing to create your own music and make a living. Probably as hard as it is to be an actor. But I thought like if I can get a job in New York, which I then end up doing, and found a job to pay for the rent, and I can on the side create and make music, then that's the entry ticket to potential having a career. And obviously I was just dreaming big, and I had no idea what it actually means to pursue an artist's career. I had no clue, right? So
No. Well, yeah, that's what they say, right? You go to New York to kind of fulfill your dreams. And with all of that, I feel like us kind of creatives, we always have we always fall into this thing, right? We have to pay the rent, we got to pay the bills, so we have to get a job. But at the same time, we all have a side thing. Everybody that I know, we always have a side thing, and I feel like a lot. Luckily for me, I'm blessed to do both,
mhm.
and I have kind of this flexibility to pursue my passion. But for a lot of people, you kind of get stuck in your day job, right? And you want to kind of go full time on this
Mhm.
thing that you're very passionate about. But some people feel stuck, and they ended up living almost their whole life, and they can't fulfill their dream. So it sounds like you got there, but talk to us about a little bit, maybe any setbacks you had, kind of finding yourself through that, saturated, with the music, and just trying to figure yourself out in this big city.
Yeah, I think I was naive in the sense that, again, you pursue your dream and you dream big, and you think you have talent and you think you have the looks. And I never thought I was a great singer, but I thought like I have, something to give. And, I don't think necessarily you need to be the best singer in the world to create amazing music. So this was kind of my position. And but then I realized, and I also thought I was always waiting for this phone call that somebody like an agent or a manager would call you up and say, Rob, we were waiting for you, come over, we'll make your career. That obviously never happened. So I think it was just after a year of doing open mics and getting a band together, releasing my first EP back then. It was in 2008, 2009 when the whole like digital took over. So
Yeah.
independent artists started to manage themselves and being able to release music on their own. So this was this turning point in the industry, and so that was a good thing for me. But I was still kind of hoping that somebody would take me out of the struggle as an artist and make my career. So I was, I think that's just a false hope to have, and it made me then
Right.
realize what it actually means to do it on yourself. And I had to do it all myself. So getting a band together, paying for the recording, and I was still like, this was more old school recording back then. So you would get musicians into a studio, pay for the studio, have an engineer and all that stuff. So I just ended up, until recently, actually, with this film project, we're going to talk about it later on, I imagine, in the show, is that I've always spent, I never saved money. So I always had jobs to pay the rent, but I also was lucky enough to get jobs to be able to invest into my art. And this is what I did. But I would say after 3 years of New York, and then eventually moving back because of I met this woman on the train, and then love story.
That's what happens.
It happened to me, and then we broke up later on, or quite early actually later on. But I just realized that this is a really, really long journey that can be tough, and I needed to ask myself, what is it exactly what I want? Because how do you define a success is really important at some point to ask yourself as an artist. What do you want, and why do you want it? And yes, I guess I just had this romantic picture of standing in front of 10,000 people on a stage with a band and play ballads and touch people's hearts. But then reality kicked in, and it was all just...
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the question is, and my at the time vocal coach that I worked with said, it's not the best singers or musicians who are the most successful, but it's the ones that have the longest breath. So I understood.
That's true.
It comes down, yes, talent is part of it, but it really comes down to working hard and being persistent with your work.
Yeah. You have to be consistent, and a lot of people kind of just quit because they're not seeing the results or whatever they imagined. But you just got to keep at it, just keep on doing it. And,
it sounds so easy, but it's difficult.
Yeah. No, that's the one thing too. And especially with everything, sometimes, you can kind of get, you fall into this hole, right? And you feel like you're never going to get out, but you just got to keep pushing. And that's something where, like you said, it's tough, but it's just nobody's going to save you. That's what a lot of people, I kind of mentioned, that nobody's going to save you, right?
That's
so
true.
you got to save yourself. And, going back, I did listen to one of your tracks, and I was going to ask you, man, your voice is pretty good, man. I was listening to Contact.
Yeah.
And I saw a little bit of kind of making, like the behind the scenes of it. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Making the actual
music video, you mean?
Yeah, the project itself and what goes into it, what people don't see, at least.
Yeah.
So
if you happen to see the official music video, then I went to Mongolia to shoot a music video with the Eagle Hunters, right? That one.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I think that's a documentary in itself, right there.
Yeah, it was, and it was partially, I guess, the idea to capture something like that in an authentic way, and then, at the same time, try to tell a story, and at the same time give a philosophical message to the audience. But then I probably tried to do too many things at the same time. But actually, this was one of the kickoff moments to embark on this journey as a filmmaker.
That was my next question. That was my next question. How did you what transitioned you to get behind the camera, right?
Yeah.
That was my next question. So
I finished. After New York again, I lived there for 3 years, and I took my baby steps as a musician, singer, songwriter. Then coming back to Switzerland. And I started working with this guy who's by now a dear friend. His name is Tom Fuller, amazingly talented writer and producer in London. And we finished an album, and the songs talk about this idea how technology is, maybe dehumanizing us as human beings. How it's taking over the world. And Contact for me was the concept of the album, or the idea that I wanted to put out there with this music video for the song Contact. And being out in the Mongolian desert and living with these nomads, or nomad tribes that, they're nomads. They live with their animals,
Yeah.
and they're
Right.
just very connected to nature. They have no technology. At least 5 years ago it was the case. Maybe it has changed by now. So that inspired me to explore this question of where are we going with like social media and smartphones and all these technologies and digital that is taking over our lives. So I started to and understanding that I wasn't able to portray that idea and message in my music video for whatever reason. Maybe people didn't find the video, maybe they didn't like the music, maybe they didn't like the video, or they didn't understand what I want to say. But I thought, okay, let's connect the voices here and hear other people talk about it. So I simply just took my smartphone and started to interview people with this very broad question: how does social media as the mirror to society of how we're presenting ourselves and using technology, how is social media affecting us on a human level? So I just
Right.
started to interview people, artists, businessmen, parents, anybody you can think of, with my smartphone, ironically. Yeah, and just after collecting, let's say 50, 60 interviews from different countries as well, I thought like, oh, there's something in there. People feel concerned. People have something to say and share. Why
Right.
not use this material to create something maybe more meaningful? And that was the point of saying like, okay, there's a film, maybe there's a documentary I can make out of this.
No, yeah, and are you currently working on it or is it
Oh
finished?
no, I've been working on it for, so Mongolia was back in 2015, 16, I believe. I released the video in 16. So I've been then starting to do these interviews, but
Collect.
more as a
Right.
not knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then I would say that the past 4 years, the musical journey has shifted into this journey of making this documentary with so many twists and turns and struggles around the making of the film. But I'm now, and this is why I think this is an interesting moment to talk about this, I'm about to finish this fucking film. I have to say fucking film because it almost killed me so many
No,
times. But yeah, so timeline wise, I'm at this point, we're editing. We have to shoot some more, little B-roll here and there, but that's it. And then by April, I think this year, it will be finished, picture lock. And then we're looking at, how to release it, or I'm looking at this with potential partners. But yeah, this is the moment. This is the big year for me.
yeah. So we're gonna break this down to three sections here. So first of all, you kind of touched a little bit how you got started with this project, and sometimes that's what happens. At least for me, where you kind of start this project and there's no kind of step one, step two. It just happens
Mm-hmm.
like organically, and I think that's what happened with you, where you just started kind of collecting these interviews, and then you started kind of over time kind of seeing kind of like visuals in your
Mm-hmm.
mind, right? How it will play out, and then you started kind of connecting the dots. Now you're touching on an interesting topic that is something, especially with the C word that's happening in the last 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? The whole world is affected by, it's not like sometimes we see in the news there's countries affected. No, the whole world is affected by this one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually keeping us more distant than ever. I feel like, so adding technology, adding this pandemic, this is some searching for contact is gonna hit everybody, right? Because everybody can relate to this. Have you thought about marketing this particular project and thinking about what what how people will receive it?
Um, it's a like a two-dimensional question here, or it touches on two topics. One is the film itself and what it's actually talking about and saying. Maybe I have to quickly elaborate on that, what searching for contact is about. So I've explored social media as this phenomena that potentially is disconnecting society, but also connecting it. And I came from a more critical view on this topic to say like, oh, it's disconnecting us, and we need to, reconnect by whatever, meeting physically more, talking to each other. But that itself, you're not going to make a feature. I mean, it's not telling this story that will guide you through 90 minutes of watching a film. So that was a bit
Yeah.
of a challenge. And what we finally, I ended up partnering with a dear by now friend of mine in New York, Scott Gabriel, who's also co-producing or producing with me, and with my editor in Munich. So we're kind of a team of three people, because I understood, for me it's becoming, this film has just become so complex in a way, also what we're saying. And I am in it, so I'm sharing a personal journey there as well as a musician, and I just thought I need some outside perspective. And I always insisted, or maybe in the beginning I envisioned making a different movie than that it's actually becoming, which was this very epic, preachy, connect to nature, and we're losing all of that, and that would have been a wrong road to go down, maybe. But I just organically, things started to shift into another direction. First of all, by saying, okay, I'm going to share my personal journey, which goes back to New York when I got my first smartphone in 2007. And then to
Right.
say, what can we explore within this topic that people will be able to relate to? So rather than to just say, okay, the C word, Corona, is, yes, it enforces technology on us, and we're all longing for human connection more than ever because we can't meet or whatever. Then my film touches on a specific topic within that topic, which is that we have become so connected digitally in a way that we're presenting ourselves constantly and on a daily basis. And this is not only true for artists. By now it's the secretary, the mother, the coach, whoever, whatever business you're starting, you are this digital identity and figure that needs to sell something, or yourself. That we're talking, or I'm talking in this film about, or questioning the who you are, and whether you can be authentic in this world of this digital imprint that you get, on your front, just because we're living in this digital world. So
Right.
yes, it's about connection, and human connection is definitely a topic that I'm exploring in the film, but without giving the answers. But the question of who am I and who do I try to present to the world, and I'm presenting it on social media, that's an interesting point as well. And that's a struggle itself, for so many different reasons. And I think, I hope that, yes, that what you're saying, that was exactly my thought. Oh, Corona is a gift for the film because everybody's now at home, so searching
Right.
for contact can remind people of a solution. But I don't know whether it's going to do that, but I think it's absolutely a good moment for the film to be released, because I think before Corona and COVID, it was people like me were maybe more aware of this online struggle than others, and now I feel like Zoom fatigue, and people just really know what I'm talking about. So I think in that regard, it helped to create the awareness and understanding for what I'm trying to explore and say with the film. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that was kind of where I was going, is that, you probably didn't have an idea this was happening. Nobody
No,
did, but
I knew, Rodrigo. I knew.
yeah.
You should have called me. I would have told you.
Oh man, you would have saved us so many hours on Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
you know, and it's funny though, because you know, I, with everybody that comes on, I mentioned that these last 2 years have really pushed us, or fast forward us, I feel like 8 years ahead,
Mm-hmm.
and now you see that with everything going digital, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even with Facebook now kind of migrating to this new metaverse,
Yeah.
right? It's even going to be even more of a disconnect, where you're not going to be seeing people like face to face anymore, because they're not going to want to. They're just going to
Mm-hmm.
be just still, in your words, searching for contact, because at the end of the day, you only know your cousin or your best friend through Instagram or Facebook, right? You don't even know what's happening, between the lines. So it's an interesting topic, and I'm interested to see, what the documentary kind of when it's, becomes finished.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, mentioning the metaverse, um, one thing about the documentary and the journey I'm sharing is we're looking at a lifespan of 15 years of this journey that again started. We're going back, basically, the film starts back mainly in New York in 2007. And this was the mass adoption of social media with Facebook and smartphone. The first iPhone was released. And
Right.
we're putting this film and this journey on a timeline of these 15 years, so it goes right into now. And I think that's interesting, but it's also interesting if we look ahead. And as you're mentioning, metaverse and how digitalization has been accelerated by Corona during the lockdown periods, that I hope that there is some potential truth. I don't know, truth isn't the right word, but this the questioning of how we connect, and do we want to connect that way? Is this healthy for humanity, or are we making ourselves extinct because we're just going to wear some weird virtual helmets in the future, just sitting in a chair and eating some pills to survive, and then just traveling through space that way? My point is that I hope that my film, nevertheless, it's so specific about social media and presenting yourself as this brand, I guess, digital brand, that it touches upon something timeless, and that maybe people in 20 years will look back at Searching for Contact to get reminded of what we've maybe lost along the way. I don't know. This is I don't want to claim
Yeah,
this
just to
for me, but
just to be,
yeah,
yeah, it's like self-aware that, hey, just be mindful where we might go if we
yeah.
don't kind of be self-aware of this technology, that it could consume us in the long run.
It is consuming us. It's consuming me too, and I think it's not. It's gonna consume us even more, as you said. But that's not
Yeah.
to say it's
Yeah.
a problem per se. I think it's just a very double-edged sword that we need to look at carefully.
Yeah. That's if there's a definition for a double-edged sword, I feel like
That's
it's
it. That's the
technology,
one.
you know?
Yes.
You know? And you know, making this film, what was there any setbacks that you kind of felt like, man, like, am I gonna finish this film?
Oh,
What problems kind of came about?
yeah. No, I mean, constant setbacks. I mean, even now, it's no. I have to say, I'm very motivated, and I've been along the way. But there were moments where I thought, like, I'm not gonna finish this, or this is not gonna be a film because there's no story to tell, or it's not working out, or I don't have the footage. The moment I decided to put myself into the film as a protagonist, I have struggled so much with footage because I didn't have a camera team following my footsteps and documenting what I went through. So that was a big challenge on a merely just like visual level, how to make this work as a yeah as a film, right?
Are you using a particular camera, or are you just kind
No,
of just
so
using whatever?
the thing is, we went back to 2007 and we started looking into archive material that I have, collected over the years. What
Right.
I then we so I can maybe sum it up. So it's archive, it's social media posts. Then we have all these interviews from. I mean, I ended up interviewing over 300 people in 16 countries over 4 years,
Yeah.
which is
Wow.
quite crazy. But obviously,
Yeah.
these voices are adding a lot to the film. And then the moment I realized that I should just document myself a little more because potentially I will end up using it was maybe like 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So I just started to use my smartphone or film and document during my journey with my smartphone. So it's going to be a very hybrid film, which I think is quite
Yeah.
timely and speaks for, or is kind of representing social media itself, which is you have all these polished pictures, you have the people doing selfie videos, shaky, blurry, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's like the visual signature of the film allows everything and anything without confusing on a visual level. I think it's just the world we're living in where people are questioning less how was this shot, who was filming this. Like, you're just watching a
Right.
story and
Yeah.
you're okay with it, right? I think it used to be
Yeah. Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I feel like things are kind of transitioning with, it more story. And I mean, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
nobody's gonna ask what it was shot at. And then as far as, it's a documentary, so
Exactly.
you're more focused on the actual subject. And I want to touch base on recording yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
what when you're recording yourself, one thing that I've learned, especially when you're putting yourself out there, is be vulnerable. Is that something that you kind of thought about?
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you put yourself out there, I feel like the audience kind of gravitates more to it.
Yeah, well, this is a big topic, and I partially touch upon it in my film for sure. I would say that even though I created, pieces of art like music videos, sometimes I would be in them, sometimes not. I was always very careful, or I tried to please the people, or I was hoping to please them. So talking about vulnerability, I think I never showed myself that vulnerable, even though if you go back to some of these music videos, I mean, you're just gonna laugh out loud the way I presented myself, and I'm almost like ashamed of that. So very vulnerable in that regard. But I at the time I was more like protecting myself, and I think the vulnerability just came, like the decision to put myself in the film itself is a vulnerable point, for the main reason that the story we're telling is not the story I thought I want to share with the world. The story we're telling is the vulnerable struggle, failing, things didn't work out story of Rob Holub. So therefore, I really needed to take away my ego here in order to allow the story to unfold, because you
Yeah.
always protect yourself even if you put yourself out there. And this is the question of
Yeah.
authenticity. Like, when are you making yourself vulnerable just because you're posting something on social media? Not necessarily. The question is, are you honest? Are
Yeah.
you
That's
sharing your
yep. That's you.
truth?
You hit it.
Right, this is the question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge on other people whether they do it or not, but I can say from my own experience, even though I was putting myself out there, I was doing it in control, very much in control of what I wanted to happen or not. But I can tell you one thing: it didn't. I don't think that people connected to it that much, and I'm hoping that with this film, there's this vulnerable aspect by the fact that I'm sharing my truth here, and I hope that people will relate to it and that they will be relieved to see this. It's not this typical hero's journey that I'm sharing. Um, and I think maybe this could potentially be interesting because it's different. It's not the social media influencer story. It's the underdog, I didn't make enough followers on social media story. And per se, why would that be interesting? Maybe because 99% of people struggle with the exact same thing, because only 0.5% are influencers who are successful, you know?
Right. No, that's 100% true. And if for the audience, what would you say if you had just a pitch here for your film that's gonna come out this year? Give us a pitch for the film.
Well, the film follows a musician on his journey to conquer the world and make his dream of becoming a successful musician reality. But then, the moment he had to build a social media following, he fails at building that following to a point where he breaks down to the darkest places of his life. But this dark place brought him on a journey to explore what it means to be successful in social media, and whether that is the real gateway to happiness, or whether there's something different that we need to acknowledge to ourselves and our own personal truth, which for me was, success is not the followers. Success is to be on a journey and accept it as a journey, and learn and grow and be happy with that. And it should be enough to just be good, right? good is good enough. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be a superstar.
Right.
So the self-acceptance of my journey is a huge. I mean, people talk about self-love, but really it's self-acceptance in a way for who you are.
No, yeah, and you said it right. You know, the success, right? It's the hills, it's the journey, right? It's not the top, it's the up and downs.
Absolutely.
That's success, you know, and you know that you know through those times, that's what kind of led you to today. So I'm excited to see this documentary, Rob, and you know, I'm assuming you haven't decided where you're gonna release it or on what platform.
I haven't decided yet. I'm still, as I said, in the finishing line with the post production. So still putting all my efforts and energy into making this as a good of a film that I can, and then I will try to just share it with some people that could help me in releasing it, because that's not my expertise. I mean, I almost feel like I'm in this place as a musician, as an independent artist, where you need to do everything on your own, but I've just learned along the way that you need a team. And
Yeah.
ideally you have some budget, and probably I would like to explore a festival route to show it at film festivals first. I have a distribution company in Switzerland, so I'm gonna try to find a world sales partner or distribution company on the international market as well for it, and then we'll see whether it's gonna hit Netflix or not. Or there's so many other digital platforms now that are
Oh
hungry
yeah.
for content. So
No, yeah. There's several. You know, look into Tubi TV. You could Film Hub.
yeah,
They're a distributor. So there's several options for you. But Rob, thank you for stopping by the podcast.
thank you
I'm
for
excited
having
to
me.
check out. I'm excited to check out the documentary. And you know, before we leave, I want to ask you a question. You know, and this is something that sometimes we deal with every day. But what motivates you every day, Rob? What helps you and gets you excited to get up every day?
It is connecting with other people. We're social animals, we're social beings, and I mean, my search for contact, or my search as an artist for this perfect song that will touch people's hearts, I think it's always finding a sense of belonging, finding a sense of meaning, and that is for me directly connected to an experience with other people. Yes, I can go on the Swiss mountaintop and enjoy the sunset or sunrise and feel fulfilled for the moment and be happy, but eventually for me it's this constant going out of the comfort zone, meeting people, exploring life, experiencing it, and sharing it with other people. And not just online, but like, I mean, in the physical world. That's what drives
No,
me
yeah.
most.
No, that's well said, Rob. Well said. And you know, that's what gets us up. You know, that's what gets me up. Is just you know, what's the next obstacle, right? What's the next goal that you're gonna conquer today? So, Rob, thank you for stopping by, and you know, I'm excited. You know, I didn't even ask you where are you speaking to us from.
Yeah, so I'm based out of Zurich, Switzerland. That's in the middle of Europe, for those who are not familiar with our little tiny neutral country. So yeah, I'm 9 hours ahead. It's evening. It's quarter to 8 p.m. here. So
You know what? One thing I did want to ask you, man, like the videos and the pictures I see from Switzerland, it just makes me want to just go over there like the next day.
you
It's just
should.
beautiful over
It's a
there.
beautiful country, and you should come visit. I will offer you a place to stay. But I
There it
sometimes
is.
struggle a little bit with this. It's a comfort zone as well. Like, I guess it's what you make out of it, but there's a tendency here that, you go to the lake, you go hiking, you eat cheese fondue. So the slight
And chocolate.
struggle I miss from New York, right? Because that pushes you to create. So it's easy not to create here, but you just need to motivate yourself even more. Yeah.
No, yeah, and you know, whenever you're on the West Coast, you let me know. We could probably do something real cool. So let me know.
Absolutely, it would be a pleasure. Thank you so much again for inviting me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and yeah, thanks for contributing with your podcast.
No, thank you, Rob, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next podcast. Have a good day. We're out.
Bye.
Would you like to be on the podcast? Got something to talk about? Make sure to head over to the website at hardwoodrod.com. Leave your name and the topic you'd like to discuss, and I'll add you to the calendar.